There exists a peculiar kind of guilt that many of us carry throughout our lives without ever properly naming it or examining its source. It is that uncomfortable feeling that rises in your chest when you finally stop helping someone, even though you know with absolute clarity that your continued help has been draining you, harming your well-being, or pulling you into burdens that Allah never asked you to carry in the first place. This happens because most of us grew up absorbing the belief that helping others is always virtuous, that saying no to any request automatically makes you selfish, that stepping back from someone else's chaos means you have somehow failed them as a believer or as a decent human being. But what if that belief is not entirely true? What if Islam, in its profound wisdom, does not actually ask you to help everyone who asks? And what if Allah, in certain specific situations, actually forbids you from helping certain people, not to make you harsh or cold-hearted, but to protect you, to protect your heart, to protect your deen, and sometimes even to protect the very person you think you are helping? The Qur'an establishes boundaries for very deliberate reasons. Not every situation that presents itself deserves your active support. Not every request that reaches you deserves your automatic yes. And not every person actually benefits from the help they demand or manipulate from you. Because sometimes, what appears on the surface to be help is not mercy at all. Sometimes it is enabling harm to continue. And that is precisely where this important conversation begins, with the unexpected but liberating truth that there are people Allah does not want you to help. Understanding why this is true represents one of the most important forms of wisdom you will ever acquire in your lifetime. Let us begin this examination carefully. The person who wants your help to do wrong. One of the clearest situations where Islam explicitly tells you to step back is when someone directly asks you to help them do something you already know is wrong according to Allah's guidance. It does not always have to be a major, obvious sin. Sometimes these requests involve small things that feel innocent on the surface. A lie they want you to cover for them, a secret they pressure you to protect, a favor that seems harmless but sits uneasily in your conscience. Perhaps it is a friend asking you to hide something significant from their family. Perhaps it is a colleague at work pressuring you to bend established rules for their benefit. Perhaps someone wants you to speak on their behalf in a way you know is not completely truthful. Or perhaps they want your support while they actively hurt or deceive someone else. In the immediate moment, such requests often feel like loyalty, like standing by someone you care about. But Allah calls it something entirely different. The Quran states clearly, "Do not cooperate in sin and transgression." The meaning is unmistakable. If helping someone requires you to step into something that Allah dislikes or has forbidden, then helping them is no longer an act of kindness. It becomes participation in wrongdoing. Islam does not ask you to destroy your own integrity in order to protect someone else's wrongdoing. And it does not reward a loyalty that comes at the direct cost of truth and righteousness. So if you have ever pulled away from a situation because something about it did not feel right to your conscience, you were not being cold or uncompassionate. You were following a boundary that Allah Himself has established for your protection and for the protection of what is right. You are not responsible for carrying someone into sin alongside you. There are people you help with your hands and resources. There are people you help with your heart and prayers. But there are also people you help most effectively by stepping back entirely, so you do not become part of the harm they are actively choosing. And this reality leads us directly to the next type of person, someone whose help will always extract a cost far deeper than you initially realize. The one who uses your help to continue their oppression. There is another kind of situation that Allah warns us about with equal clarity. The moment when someone asks for your help not to genuinely solve a problem, but to continue hurting someone else. This does not always look dramatic. It does not always involve a tyrant or an obvious villain. Sometimes it appears quiet, subtle, carefully hidden inside family dynamics or long-standing friendships. It might be a person who wants you to support them while they consistently mistreat someone in their household. Someone who wants you to take their side publicly so they can continue controlling or belittling another person privately. Someone who expects your silence so their harmful behavior never gets properly confronted. Or someone who demands you defend them even when you know in your heart that they are the one causing genuine harm. You feel the internal tension clearly, the guilt of saying no versus the deeper guilt of helping them continue their injustice. But Allah removes this confusion with very clear guidance. He says, "Do not incline toward those who do wrong, or the fire will touch you." The meaning is profound. When you support someone's oppression, even quietly, even indirectly, you are no longer just a neutral witness standing on the sidelines. You become part of the moral weight of what they are doing. And Allah never asked you to carry that burden. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in such a situation is refuse to contribute your support. Refuse to validate their behavior. Refuse to become the tool someone uses to make their wrongdoing easier to sustain. And this refusal does not make you cruel or hard-hearted. It makes you just, because helping someone continue their oppression does not save them from anything. It actually sinks them deeper into it, while simultaneously pulling you down with them. There are moments in life when stepping back is not abandonment of a person. It is obedience to Allah. It is choosing Allah's pleasure over social pressure, over guilt, over fear of what people might say about you. Because helping someone continue their oppression does not heal any situation. It simply gives them more room and more time to cause harm. Allah, in His perfect mercy and justice, does not want you involved in that, not out of coldness, but out of His commitment to true justice. The one who drains you while refusing to change. There is a particular kind of help that feels noble and compassionate on the surface, but silently destroys you from the inside over time. It happens when someone comes to you only when they are in crisis, and every single time you give them your energy, your time, your emotional comfort, your resources, they return almost immediately to the exact same behavior that is systematically ruining their life. They cry to you. They swear this time will be different. They promise this is absolutely the last time they will ask. They beg for just one more chance. And you, being who you are, being the kind of person you have always been, keep showing up for them. Not because they are genuinely changing or growing, but because you simply cannot stand watching another human being fall apart, even when their falling apart is a direct result of choices they keep making. But here is a truth that most people never say out loud, because it sounds harsh. Sometimes your help is the very thing keeping them stuck in their destructive pattern. Not because you are doing anything wrong in your intentions, but because they have unconsciously learned that you will always come in to rescue them before the natural consequences of their choices ever fully reach them. And that rescue, however well-intentioned, prevents the very lessons Allah is trying to teach them through those consequences. Islam does not ask you to carry that kind of burden indefinitely. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, taught us, a believer is not stung from the same hole twice. The meaning goes beyond just being careful. It means you are not meant to repeat a pattern that keeps harming you just because your heart happens to be soft and compassionate. It takes real strength and maturity to recognize when your presence is no longer healing someone, when it is actually enabling them, when it is allowing them to avoid the accountability they desperately need, when it is saving them from a lesson that Allah, in His wisdom, is trying to teach them for their own ultimate benefit. Sometimes stepping back entirely is the only way a person finally wakes up to reality. And stepping back does not mean you stop caring about them as a human being. It means you stop carrying a burden that Allah never placed on your shoulders in the first place. The one who pulls you away from your Deen. There are people whose presence in your life slowly, almost imperceptibly, changes the way you think about Allah and your relationship with Him. Not through open arguments or theological debates, but through subtle, constant influence that works on you over time. You find yourself praying a little later when you are around them. You lower your standards to maintain their comfort or approval. You laugh at things you would have consciously avoided when alone. And you start making excuses for behaviors you once clearly knew were harmful and wrong. Not because you have stopped caring about Allah or your faith, but because being consistently around them makes what is wrong feel lighter and more acceptable, and makes what is right feel inconvenient or even extreme. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, warned us about exactly this dynamic when he taught, a person is upon the religion of their close friend, so let each of you look carefully at whom he befriends. This is not about judging people harshly or unfairly. This is about understanding how spiritual influence actually works in real life. The people who are closest to you, the ones you spend the most time with, shape your thoughts, your habits, your spiritual sensitivity, your level of shame around sin, and your desire for good. And when someone in your close circle constantly makes your faith feel optional, or pushes you toward convenient excuses, or normalizes what Allah has clearly stated He dislikes, helping them, supporting them, or maintaining that level of closeness slowly becomes a form of harm to your own soul. Sometimes you do not even realize the full impact until much later. You look back and notice how much lighter your worship used to feel. How much more honest your heart was before that particular influence entered your daily routine. So stepping back in this kind of situation is not cruelty toward them. It is necessary self-preservation. It is protecting the part of you that quietly whispers, "Do not lose who you were trying to become." And when you honor that whisper and act on it, Allah strengthens it within you. the one who belittles your faith or mocks what Allah revealed. There is a different kind of harm that people rarely discuss openly, not physical harm, not even emotional harm in the usual sense, but spiritual harm that damages something deeper. It happens when someone in your life casually mocks what Allah has made sacred. They joke about hijab as though it is a strange cultural artifact. They roll their eyes when you get up to pray. They treat halal and haram like outdated ideas that educated people have moved beyond. Or they make you feel odd or extreme for simply wanting to be closer to Allah. At first, you try to ignore it. You tell yourself they are just joking, they do not really mean it that way. You try to remain patient. Maybe you even hope that your positive attitude and good example will eventually inspire them to change. But over time, something shifts. Not in them, in you. Your sense of shame around sin becomes weaker and less sensitive. Speaking openly about Allah feels awkward in their presence. Doing the right thing feels like swimming upstream against a strong current. And the environment begins shaping your heart more powerfully than your conscious intentions do. Allah addresses this exact situation in the Qur'an. When you see people mocking or denying Allah's revelations, do not sit with them until they change the topic. Notice what it does not say. It does not command you to hate them. It does not tell you to cut them off forever with no possibility of reconciliation. It simply, clearly tells you not to remain in a place where faith itself is being actively pulled down and mocked, because hearts are influenced by their environment even when we believe they are stable. But here is the important balance. Islam does not command complete avoidance in every single situation. If someone is genuinely open, curious, or simply ignorant about Islamic teachings, your kindness and wisdom may be exactly what guides them toward truth. And guiding someone gently toward truth is one of the most rewarding acts you can possibly offer in this life. Distance is specifically for those moments when being close is actively damaging your own deen. Guidance is for those moments when someone's heart is soft enough to actually hear you. Knowing the difference between these two situations is an essential part of spiritual maturity. The one who asks for help in a way that harms others. There is a form of help that people rarely recognize as help when they are providing it. It is the help that flows through silence, through money, through convenience, through routine habits you never questioned. Sometimes you are not directly handing someone a weapon. You are just handing them support, a purchase, a click, a habit you never examined carefully. You hear people say, "My personal boycott does not change anything. One person stopping will not make any real difference." But here is the truth we too often forget. Harm is almost never created by one single person acting alone. It is created by millions of small actions that combine together into something powerful and destructive. And stopping harm works in exactly the same way. Your individual decision alone will not stop an oppressor's bomb from falling. But your decision is part of a much larger pattern. And when enough people make that same conscious decision, money shifts, economic pressure builds, and companies begin to feel the weight of collective conscience. But more importantly than any visible result, Allah sees your intention. He sees that you refuse to let your money, your choices, or your habits strengthen the hands of those who oppress innocent people. The Quran tells us plainly, do not cooperate in sin and transgression. This divine command applies whether the sin is happening in your own living room or thousands of miles away in a land you have never visited. And yes, it feels small. It feels insignificant. It feels like nothing tangible changes that you can measure with your eyes. But every movement in history that shifted injustice started with individual hearts deciding, I will not be part of this. Your boycott is not about fame, not about power, not about results you can immediately measure and celebrate. It is about refusing to support harm even in the smallest, most invisible ways. And that refusal is itself a form of worship, because it is an act of conscience before Allah. Sometimes helping someone means giving generously, but sometimes helping the world means withholding your money, your support, your silence, your passive participation. And those small moments of integrity are never wasted with Allah, the one who refuses change and spreads harm because of it. There is an important difference between someone who struggles sincerely with sin and someone who actively protects their sin from any examination. The first type of person deserves compassion, patience, and gentle reminders offered with wisdom. But the second type becomes someone you are not meant to support in their chosen path. Because their stubborn refusal to change does not just affect them personally. It begins to affect everyone in their orbit. You have encountered this type before. Someone who knows a habit is destructive but becomes angry when anyone reminds them. Someone who mocks any advice that threatens their comfort. Someone who treats sin like it is part of their identity rather than a weakness to overcome. And because they do not want to face themselves honestly, they create noise, drama, and conflict to distract from the truth. It is not long before their choices start pulling others down with them. A friend group's dynamic shifts toward harm. A family's atmosphere becomes unstable. Rumors spread, boundaries blur. Suddenly the person who refuses to change becomes the center of ongoing chaos. And helping them at that point means getting pulled directly into the very harm they are causing and spreading. Allah warns us about people like this, those who not only turn away from guidance themselves, but also make sure others turn away with them. Not everyone who sins is spiritually dangerous to be around, but someone who defends their wrongdoing, mocks any correction, and then spreads fitna to protect their choices, that is someone Islam does not ask you to actively support. You are not required to fuel their chaos. You are not responsible for shielding their ego from reality. And you are not meant to stand loyally beside someone who uses your loyalty as a tool to deepen the harm they cause. The door of guidance remains open for anyone willing to take even a small step toward it. But when someone fights against every door Allah opens for them, all while dragging others into their storm, stepping back becomes wisdom, not cruelty. The balance. Boundaries with a merciful heart. There is something profoundly important to understand here, especially at this stage of life when we have seen much and learned much. When Allah tells you not to help in certain specific situations, it is not a command to become cold, distant, or hard-hearted toward people. It is a command to remain truthful, to avoid enabling harm, to protect your own faith, while still wishing good for others. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, faced people who mocked him, hurt him, rejected him, and actively plotted against him. Yet his heart never closed. He did not support their wrongdoing, but he never stopped hoping for their eventual guidance. He never responded to harm with harm. He never turned his back on someone simply because they struggled. That is the balance Islam teaches us. So when we say, do not help them, it does not mean cut them off completely, hate them, or act superior to them. It means, do not participate in what harms them, harms others, or harms you. But still carry mercy in your heart. Still hold good intentions for their future. Still make sincere dua for their healing and guidance. Still be available if they ever genuinely choose the path of sincerity. A Muslim has firm boundaries. But a Muslim also has a heart that never stops rooting for good, even in those who have not yet found it. So if you step back from someone because their path was pulling you toward harm, that does not make you harsh or unkind. Just make sure your heart did not step back from compassion itself. If this message reached you today when you needed it, leave a small prayer below. Ya Allah, guide me to help with wisdom. Until we meet again, may our character always reflect the gentleness of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.